Welcome to the T-Squared Dad's Brown Bag Podcast. Here's your hosts, Kyle Baker and Dieter Burrell.
Okay. Alan.
Hey, Dieter.
It's been a long time. Thank you for joining us in this podcast. I wanted to bring you in and have you tell us a little bit about your story. What got you into landscape architecture? What school did you go to? And how long did it take for you to get licensed, and how things are going and where you're at now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the real story is I graduated high school in '85 and wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I worked a bunch of different jobs. I worked sales and I worked as a janitor and I worked all different odd jobs. And then I ended up working for a landscape company just as a laborer. It was run by two landscape architects. And I thought, man, this is the coolest job ever. You get to draw and design, and you get to see it put in the ground, and you get to see it grow, and you get to maintain it. I'm like, man, I want to do this. So I went to Georgia State for a couple of years and got some of my undergraduate requirements knocked out. Mm-hmm. And then I transferred to University of Georgia and got in landscape architecture school there. And I was never a fantastic student or anything. I was always kind of B/C student until I got in landscape architecture school, and I think I only got one B the whole time I was in landscape architecture school, just because I loved it so much and I was so excited about it. And got out in '91, which was a little bit of a tough time for the architecture and landscape architecture business. Found a job up in Nashville. I guess thankfully a lot of guys now don't have to work like we did back then, because it was 60, 80, 100-hour weeks, all-nighters once a month. Yeah. It was tough. But I learned a lot of stuff and made a lot of good contacts. One of the companies I worked with at that company is still a client of mine now. So I've been working with them for 30-something years. And then I worked for them for 5 years, went to another company in Knoxville, worked for them for 2 years, and then had the opportunity to come back to Panama City. My mom still lives in Panama City. Yeah. So moved back there, worked for a design, build, maintain company, and then broke out on my own, started my own business in 2000, mostly because I didn't know any better. And yeah. It's worked out okay. We're actually, I know I've got my background blurred right now, but we're sitting in our RV in just outside of Glacier National Park in Montana.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So we work remote and work all over the place and still work on a ton of projects, and I have a totally remote team. I've got like 6 guys that work for me on a contract basis. Mm-hmm. And I just manage them remote. So it worked out pretty good.
It's funny that when I first heard about Alan Holt, landscape architect, I think I may have been working with was it BTA? I think it was that I was introduced to you. Gosh, I started working at BTA in 2003 to 2009 or 8 or something like that. Yeah. And I remember, I think you were part of one of the projects, or 1 or 2 projects maybe. And then I think when I went from there, and you're licensed in how many states?
15 right now.
15.
Yeah.
Do you have to pursue your CEUs for your landscape architecture? Is that something that's required?
Right. Yeah, sure is. I just got done with all my Texas CEUs this weekend. So, but yeah, I have to, they all have different renewal dates and they all have different requirements. And I end up doing probably 24 or more a year just because of all the different states that I'm licensed in to keep up with it all.
Oh, that's right. Now that it's coming to me. I think it was 2008. We did the F-35 at Eglin Air Force Base, and you were the landscape architect on that one project, which is funny because for these military jobs, they just don't want plantings. They don't want.
Right. It's right in a hydroseed spec. That's about the extent of the landscape.
And then they have that temporary irrigation for 1 year, and nine out of 10 times the contractor leaves the piping in the on site and never picks it up, and they're left of having to pick up. And it's funny because the military just does certain things differently because of all that ATFP stuff. But and I think when I was working, what was it? Prime. Now it's called Prime AE, but it was Carlos something. No, what was it? Gulf Coast Architectural Group. I think we may
Yeah.
have reached out to you. I'm not sure, but now I know when I worked at STOA, we reach out to you and do stuff with you together. How long did it take you to get licensed? Was it something really easy, or was it pretty a hassle? Because I know architecture is a hassle.
Yeah, it was a challenge, and I guess it's the same with architecture. You have to work under a licensed landscape
Mm,
architect for so long, and that was in hindsight, a mistake that I made going to Tennessee. Because in Tennessee, it's 4 years. You have to work for somebody for 4 years before you can even sit for the exam, and
wow.
they have to write you a letter of recommendation that says that they feel that you're competent to sit for the exam. Got around that one. I went to Georgia, where they only had a 1 year requirement. I'd drive down to Atlanta and take the test down there. And it was a challenge.
Wow.
And then they changed the formatting of the test on us, because it was a 4-day test and it had 7 sections, and I passed 6 of them. Then they reformatted the test and I had to go back and take 3 of them over again.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, it ended up taking me 5 years before I finally passed all the sections of the landscape architecture exam. And then some states, I think like you got Golden Gate Bridge behind you. I think California has a special section for architects, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So same thing for landscape architecture. There's a lot of states, like Florida has a section. Georgia has a section. Oh, Louisiana has a section. That was fun. I had to actually go to campus at LSU and identify plant material on the campus, and it was a handwritten pencil and paper test, and that was just 2 years ago. I took that test, and yeah, so almost not every state, probably half the states have their own sections, but then I have to renew every year and
Mhm.
all that. Yeah.
Now I know for some of you guys listening out there, I would have thought it would have been a lot easier for landscape architects. It's like you don't have to worry about these life safety code analysis and all this other crazy nonsense materials, but you guys have to deal with different plants, different soils, different, areas in the state, temperature, climate, all that kind of good stuff. So it's got to be like people say, oh, I'm going to be a veterinarian, and it's a lot harder because then you have different breeds, and it's almost like
Great.
the same
Yeah.
identical problem you end up having because you have all these intricate plants that you have to worry about, surviving the climate and
Right.
all that stuff. So
Yeah.
that's good to know that it does take some amount. Now probably now they're doing all like web-based testing. I don't know
Right. Yeah.
if you listen to any interns that you may work with or something like that. I'm sure it's totally different now than it was when you took it and passed it. So is
Right.
it is it something, is it more digital, or do they still have to go do the paper test, or is it
No, yeah,
just gone?
it's from what I understand, it's all online now. So it's multiple choice testing online, and then I think it's basically like a CAD based drawing for the
Mm.
construction detailing section, and I think for the site planning section also.
Wow, that's good. So you
Yep.
said you graduated from Georgia, right? Was it Georgia
Right.
Tech or?
No, University of Georgia. I couldn't get in Georgia Tech. I'm not that smart.
Statistically, the people that are more likely to open their own business are the people that are C average.
Yes.
So the funniest thing, because everybody says it's like, I always hear people, it's like the straight A students, they're going to get an easy pass, and the reality is, I think I spoke to was it a client, and the client says, yeah, you hire engineers because they're always looking at the safety factor, the how it's going to fail, how it's going to fail. In business, you can't be looking at how everything's going to fail. You just take a chance, and you
Right.
go with the flow, and it's sometimes a gut feeling, and you succeed. And people that are more stubborn, which are usually the C average student, are usually the ones that are more stubborn and say, hey, I'm going to stick through this. I don't care
Right.
if I have to take this class three times. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get my license, and I'm going to get my degree or whatever it takes. And some people just can't make it in the field. And look at you've been doing this now, gosh, what,
33
oh,
years.
33 years.
Yeah.
It's long time. And
Yeah.
your spectrum of having done from like governmental DoD projects all the way down to probably residential retail. I mean, you tell me. It's like if I'm saying that correctly.
Right. Yeah. I've been fortunate that I have just a broad variety of projects. I've always liked the challenge of doing different types of projects. And like you said, the military projects, they have their own challenges because you got to really think about, all that force protection and those kinds of things with the design, but you still want it to look good. So it's a challenge. But yeah, residential is what I really enjoy right now. I'm doing a lot of stuff at watercolor and Rosemary and Alice Beach and all that stuff, and do pools and hot tubs and fire pits. And those get to be complicated drawing sets. They're not just a planting plan. They're 5 or 6 pages of pool details and all that kind of stuff.
Do you have a website that people can go to?
Yeah, it's 30alandscapearchitect.com.
30alandscapearchitects.com.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. That way, some of the listeners that are out there and they're in need of a landscape architect with some really cool creative designs, they can reach out to you, and you guys can check him out on his website. The one thing that was really tough for me when just recently, I think was summer of 21, I went out on my own, and it was just, I think for me, it was not letting everyone know that I was doing it, but it was more like understanding the taxes and the
Right.
employment laws and
Yeah.
all this stuff that goes behind, behind running a business,
Yeah.
that I feel I'm still kind of struggling through it. It being, my beginning of my third year, kind of
Right.
going on my own, and pursuing contracts, reaching out to newer clients, and trying to pursue. I think I was trying to pursue this like 3-year master agreement, and just knowing recalling some of the stuff that I did when I was an intern in some of the offices that I worked at. I mean, I kind of ran across different states, worked in different states, Arizona, Florida. I've done work in Las Vegas. So it's like just a spectrum of things in different offices. It's just a learning curve. And I think it's probably the same thing with you. You haven't gone through all that learning curve from, doing Tennessee stuff all the way down to Florida and Texas. I
Right.
heard you say. Have you done anything in
Yeah.
California? Have you done any projects in California?
No, I try to stick with the Southeast because I'm real comfortable with the climate and the plants and the building materials and all that stuff in the Southeast. I just had a client today ask me to go look at a project in Montana, and I'm thinking long and hard about whether I really want to do that or not because this plant palette up here is so different from Florida. So I'll see. I'll keep you posted on that. But yeah,
Right.
the starting your own business, especially, it's hard with. I mean, I guess it's any professional practice because you're so focused on the art of what you do and what you
Mm.
went to school for, and you don't think about, uh, all the tax forms you got to fill out and all the hoops you got to jump through to make the government happy and all that kind of stuff. And that's, um, especially when you start trying to grow, it's a challenge because you got to, you have to kind of let go of the hands-on design all the time in order to market and manage and all those things.
Yeah.
And I'd grown my business when we were working together. I had a bunch of employees. I had a big office,
Oh,
and I had gotten to where I just really didn't get to do landscape architecture anymore. I went to meetings and I marketed and I reviewed other people's drawings, but I never got to draw, and I almost forgot how to run AutoCAD. I had had to reteach myself how to run AutoCAD.
wow.
So
Oh my
yeah.
gosh. So now, where are you in your profession? Have you kind of gotten rid of all that stuff? You kind of just work with contract on with other landscape architects. And
Right.
you're traveling. It looks like you're traveling. So,
Right. Yeah. That's probably a subject for a whole nother podcast, how you can work remote from all over the country like we've been doing. But yeah, I just I decided I didn't want to ever have to fire everybody again, because in 2008 I had to fire all my staff, and it was even like my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law and my wife. And so I don't want to have to do that ever again. So I've just been using contractors, and that way I don't have to worry about, if they only want to work 30 hours a week, fantastic. And, and I don't have anything for them to work on this week because I'm waiting on contracts or whatever. I don't have to come up with busy work to fill up their time, and they don't have to look busy. They just go do something else, go hang out with their family or whatever.
Yeah,
So,
that's a good thing about what I call it, the freelance mentality. And I think I said this on another podcast. James Jameson from Spider-Man, he says, freelance, that's the best job. You don't need a job. Freelance. As I tell people. But anyways, on that note, thank you for joining me, Alan. With Alan Holt, licensed landscape architect, and you can kind of follow him at what is it,
www.30alandscapearchitect.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Alan.
All right, thanks a lot, Dieter. Appreciate the opportunity.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the T-Squared Dad's Brown Bag Podcast. Please subscribe on your favorite platform, and we will talk to you next time.